A beautiful dark-skinned man with consuming dark brown eyes walked the streets, wearing robes of an excellent splendor. His hair gently fixed in a ponytail as he walked silently with a golden-haired woman. Her blue robes betrayed nothing of what just transpired behind the closed door of his house. The ticks and talks of their heels were the only sounds coming from the pair as a few citizens of Emon turned their heads as they passed. Lady Allura Vysoren was holding the famous merchant known as Gilmore by the arm. The other hand, hidden behind his back, betrayed a closed fist. People were just stealing glances, and Allura was wise enough to say nothing. She remembered an old story she had once read. The ending had no melody, and now she was just playing a secondary part in Gilmore's tragedy. He led as if she didn't know the road to her reconstructed tower. His power did not amaze her, but she found herself wondering what horrors or what love gives this man the determination to walk in this moment. He stopped just in front of her door, saying nothing, no smile, no pain being exhaled. Moving to open her door, it seemed that the ritual already began. She let him in, and with a wave of her hand she uncovered the sigil carved on her tower's floor. The runes matched their silence. Gilmore opened his bag of holding and pulled out a long, dark traveler's cape, which he put on. If you didn't know Gilmore personally, it seemed like the most mundane thing that each and everybody has done. But Allura tilted her head to the side. His actions were so slow. His actions were that of a sick man trying to conserve energy.
I suggest you do the same, Lady Allura,
he said in his usual tone. Usual for anyone who didn't know enough to notice the lentil. She walked to her hangers and pulled off a dark blue cloak.
It's colder in Whitestone.
Her heart broke for his, even in this moment. Gilmore was thinking of others.
Gilmore, I can sit with you in a corner for the rest of the day, if you can tell me that is what you want. We can just talk.
Don't be silly. You have a meeting to get back to in a few. I have a good idea to just argue with you that you should stay here and not make this journey to...
I told you, don't you even dream of it.
Her expression hardened, and he let out a giggle.
Alas, I know that you would not leave my side today. I can't argue with you, Allura, not here. Not today.
He looked down at the symbols on the great stone and stepped inside all of them. She took his hands in hers and held them against her chin. His closed fist raised her head towards him.
But I am honored to call you and Kima my friends.
She kissed his closed fists, a true friend's love, and her eyes flashed white, their cloaks billowing upwards with the light. The scent of a chamber in dire need of some fresh air hit their senses. It was Gilmore's house in Whitestone. They had made the channeling sigils together, so that they could easily use them without burning out the arcane power they shared. He knew this, yet for a moment he seemed unprepared for the view. A few droplets of blood, which didn't wash out completely, still stained his bed covers. He recuperated rapidly from his wounds in that bed.
You can't say the same for the sheets.
He let go of Allura and strode through the room. He had to face the chamber where they last talked, just the two of them.
Hey, this is not fair. Can I come in to talk?
Vax's voice crept in, without knocking this time, just forcefully made its way in, shoving other memories aside. Gilmore exited his dormitory in a rush, as if he wanted to answer the two non-existent knocks on the door, Allura followed without a word. She knew that each anti-hero was unique. So is Gilmore. So was Vax.
Let them dance,
she whispered to herself. The air was so unbreathable in the room. Therefore, she thought that was why her beloved friend hastily opened the door. However, it was not the air for Gilmore. While he cursed his foolishness, he knew perfectly well that he opened the door out of hope.
You like some tea? It's,
The memory of his own voice saying the sentence sent shivers down his spine, so he pulled his robe closer to his body and turned back to face Allura with a half smile.
I am so grateful you're here.
He walked out the door. Her feet followed him from a distance.
He knows I will always be a step behind him. This is the moment I let him worry and put on his show. Oh, Kima, how you left the room when I told you I'm going to Gilmore's. How I found you, angry and shedding a single tear at the kitchen table. I saw you clutch your coffee mug. I know you were asking Bahamut why there has to be so much pain in the life of us simple souls. Dear Kima, I have become the warrior angel you always envisioned me to be. Yet this time, I delivered only the news of death. I'll see you soon, my precious. But today, I need to be the axis mundi of our dearest friend. I love you, my sweetest. You're the best of wives, and the best of women.
Allura finished her message to Kima and just walked steps behind Gilmore. He was on a mission. He couldn't be stopped, swayed, or silenced. She didn't even try. His body moved faster and faster towards Whitestone Castle. She let him bask in the distance between them. He needed to be close to his thoughts, not her presence. Gilmore was indeed on a mission. There was only one man he knew where to find at that instant. He went straight to Percy's workshop. The guards nodded a salute when he passed by, and he returned the same half-hearted smile, knowing that Allura's salutations would excuse him. He went straight to the chamber, picking up speed that he didn't really expect. He knocked twice and entered directly as Percy switched his reading glasses to his usual ones. Gilmore did not allow him the well-mannered time to get up and greet him properly. They were past that. Cordialities work only when you haven't properly seen the chords of the other. Yet Gilmore knew exactly what made Percy's heart sing. Upon seeing him come in, Percy rose from his chair, just because it was Gilmore standing in front of him. A little out of breath, a little unexpected visit. But just a little, because Percy was clever enough to know why this man somewhat burst into his workspace. Percival placed his weight on only one leg as he observed him and waited respectfully for their silent dialogue to reach its end. The punctuation on their unspoken, unuttered sentence was the image of Allura in the corridor.
Gilmore?
He said with a polite nod.
Percy.
Gilmore lowered his head to the side. Percival went round the desk and came in front of him. His smile was that of a relative at a funeral. He looked over Gilmore's shoulder and pressed his lips together in the same half-hearted smile which he shot to Allura.
So, Vax'ildan, tell me what's on your mind.
Gilmore's own voice muttered the sentence in his head, and he must have phased out of reality because the next thing he felt was Percy's hand on his arm. His eyes were searching for his. Percy had something to say, and it was of dire importance for his own redemption.
I did my best in the moment. I tried stepping between them.
Percy's white hair betrayed some knowledge which nobody at his age should have. That's exactly what made Percy horrible. His young years. Life couldn't pin Percy down, just like death could never either.
The calculated rebel. A man too smart for his own good. Where is she?
In her room. That's where she wanted to be today.
He crossed his arms in an embrace towards himself, and Gilmore gave him a wide, bittersweet smile and turned around just to have Percival's voice hit the back of his head.
I would have sacrificed myself wholeheartedly if that meant not breaking the mirror between her and her brother. You know that, Gilmore. I don't understand how, but I know that you do.
Percy's voice was soft, yet without an ounce of regret. Shaun Gilmore stopped his pacing towards the second floor and looked over his shoulder.
He wouldn't have forgiven you for that.
He turned back to his path, leaving Percy with Allura. He cared about them so much, yet he had to find Vex. His whole body screamed out her name. When he found the master dormitory, he knocked respectfully, until he heard the voice on the other side, allowing him entrance. A Vex he never saw before sat in the middle of her room, wondering why she is needed. A Vex covered in a high-class black and dark blue dress looked at him.
You know, we're getting closer to the end game here.
She still looked too much like her brother. So much that he couldn't stop the dialogue between him and Vax happening in his mind. She let her shoulders fall limp. There was no royalty in the movements which betrayed her history in the woods, camping outside towns with her twin brother. She ran towards Gilmore and locked him in an embrace.
Oh, darling. You found out.
She probably had thought of something to continue that sentence with, yet the moment Gilmore felt her warmth on his chest, he knew she wouldn't be able to say it all verbally.
Vex'ahlia, I am so sorry this happened to you. So incredibly sorry.
He didn't let go of her, pushing his hand to the back of her head, rocking her from one side to another.
No, darling. I am incredibly sorry. I didn't muster the courage, will, or time to come tell you. Fuck, Gilmore. I lost him.
She began sobbing in the alcove that united his neck and shoulder.
We just killed another one of the dragons.
He had to get away from Vex's grasp. She looked so much like her brother. He just let out a long, barely audible shh. Was he trying to silence Vex? Or the memory of his and Vax's conversation? Was silence really the best guest to bring to this chamber? He took a look into her eyes and distanced himself from her. The incredibly beautiful Vex'ahlia seemed like she would have fallen to pieces if it wasn't for the tight corset holding her in place. She wiped her tears rapidly with her arm, having no handkerchief. Her eyes wandered towards the dust, which was now exposed by the sun's rays. She should have opened the window, but that was too much of an invitation for the outside world. Gilmore could stay, but the fresh air and the birds' songs would have crowded the room. Nothing had changed in the master bedroom since she and Percy had gotten married and had all their belongings moved there. Nothing had changed except that now the entirety of the room was filled by a space in which Vax wasn't. First of all, she needed to figure out how to deal with that, and only after could she go out into the world. Could you imagine all the space in the outside world where Vax should have been, but wasn't?
How many is that for you? 3? 4? You're making a name for yourself.
A Gilmore from the past said while sipping tea. The present Gilmore watched Vex go towards the bed and sit on the edge. All her hair gathered in an orderly manner, feathers still on its side. Vex's hair and Gilmore's pocket shared a secret that their owners didn't know about. She spoke full of confidence.
The only reason I'm even struggling to accept this is because it was his will. I rarely truly argued with my brother.
She smoothed out the wrinkles of her dress.
Because he would always let me win the argument. I have to do this little thing for him now. Let him win.
She closed her eyes and raised her face.
Pity he didn't teach me how. It's his own damn fault.
I'm proud of you.
Oh, and how much truth did that sentence contain? Years after it was uttered, it still remained one of the most truthful things Gilmore had ever said to the brooding rogue. His sister now before him needed to hear the exact same words.
I'm proud of you, Vex'ahlia.
His arms didn't want to help him create his typical dramatic movements. Therefore, to hide that, he found his way to the edge of the bed and sat next to her.
I thought I had to come here to tell you these things. You are rendering my visit short, dear.
Vex placed her head on his shoulder.
Do you know, when we said our goodbyes, he didn't fear. He wasn't afraid. I didn't even consider asking him if he was. Grog did. Grog reduced all our conversation to its essence. We all feared. Feared for him, feared of losing him. But not Vax.
Gilmore couldn't help but honestly laugh and embrace her again. Vax and Fear always had a rocky relationship.
Could you do me a favor, dear?
He broke off in his usual tone.
Why, of course.
Her eyes really did look at him, begging for a confirmation.
Would you go see Scanlan as well?
He rapidly picked at his mind, thinking, why particularly Scanlan? What made Vex bring him up so randomly? She probably saw the questions in his facial expression.
He tried so hard to save Vax. He was holding on to one of his wishes for Vax. He tried to, but it was Vax of the world.
Gilmore understood more of the fray of a battle than he would have liked to. But what was the use of having the world's most powerful arcane magic under your feet if it failed to save your dying friend? Of course he'll go see Scanlan.
Of course, I'll go to him.
And he rose to his feet.
He's in Whitestone. He and Pike got a house close to the Sun Tree.
Gilmore's amazed look and sudden
Ahem,
followed by his signature smile, made Vex burst into laughter. The good news invigorated him, and happiness shone upon both of them. His movements came back to him.
well, that just goes to prove that if you're persistent enough with what you want.
It was impossibly good to see Vex smile. Only in that instant did he understand why her brother always went out of his way to make her smile. She had one of the most ravishing smiles he'd ever seen. Memories flooded. They came cascading in. He had to run. She interrupted his thoughts with a tug of his sleeve.
My brother was so lucky to have you. Such a lucky bastard to catch your eye. Out of all the potential people who could have broke his heart, he found you. The most understanding and caring person he could have poured his first feelings of love towards.
Shaun Gilmore had to run, but his feet wouldn't listen. His heart did all the listening.
I don't know the details of what happened between you two, Gilmore.
She also rose from the bed and went to look outside the window, just to check if it was safe enough to exist now. She continued from that spot, turning towards him.
But I could figure that you were his first confusing, beckoning and tumultuous love by the stupid grin he always had on his face after seeing you.
She looked around at all the objects in the room that Vax had never touched. and when her eyes settled on Gilmore's peaceful side, only in that instant did she realize what the word familiar meant.
Thank you for not breaking his heart.
Shaun Gilmore nodded at her and raised his hand as if saying, "Don't mention it." He turned towards the door and walked away.
Oh no, really, don't mention it. Just don't.
From the downstairs, welcoming chamber, he heard Percy and Allura's voices. He stopped right there on the stairs, on the other side of the wall. He had to sit down for 2 seconds as he felt lightheaded. In his glorious attire, he sat on the stairs of Whitestone Castle. He couldn't make out any of their conversation because another one took over.
So, what brings you here so early in the morning?
He was trying to discard from his memory the way he added the word friend to that sentence, as he was self-conscious of how stupidly he said it.
I think I might be dead in a couple of days.
He remembered Vax's tone in detail. Gilmore didn't even consider the possibility. He would have had to open his mind to a completely new domain back then. There was nothing dramatic about that morning almost 2 years ago. No omen of death. Therefore Gilmore discarded such a thrill of thought. But Vax spoke on.
I came here to apologize.
Realizing his surroundings, as the coldness of the stairs reached him, he instantly thought to himself,
Not here. Not today.
and took a couple more seconds before getting up. If someone were to come in now, they would probably see the most pathetic sight. Him sitting on the stairway, and Percy and Allura talking, having a coffee on the other side of the wall. Gilmore liked a spot of drama, but despised the pathetic. He let his boots carry him into the room. He knew the script. He knew exactly what he had to say and how to say it. Percy and Allura turned their heads to meet the regular man they knew.
It seems I have to make my visit a bit longer, Allura.
He casually walked towards them.
Scadlin is in Whitestone. He contacted me to talk business a couple of days ago, and I might as well go see him.
Percy grinned at his cup.
Ah, I was just telling Allura that Grog might get to be a flower girl after all.
He placed his cup down.
I know I'm going to be seeing a wedding invitation quite soon.
Sounds of laughter united. In the grimmest, bleakest of times, Scanlon and Pike were the ones who fabricated humor and hope out of dust. It was always so. Pike's light always guided others, while Scanlon's songs inspired. Neither of them ever understood that they were the glue that kept everybody together, kept the world spinning. Eppur si muove, no matter the tragedies.
Allura.
Gilmore intentionally prolonged the last A of her name.
I can hear them putting a buffoon in charge of the capital. I don't even need to scry for that.
Gilmore had to send her on her way. He was a grown man, and the initial shock of the news had passed. Gilmore was now confident that he was going to be fine. He was now able to shut Vax's voice out of his mind, because he didn't recollect the next portion of their dialogue. Allura got up and looked like she was going to riot against his will. She didn't. She realized what the glorious bastard had done. He came in that room prepared to divert the conversation, and Percy even did that for him. If she wanted to protect Gilmore's composed image, she couldn't argue with him in front of Percy. Gilmore needed his persona more than anything right now, and Percy needed to believe the charade. Gilmore tricked her into leaving. That was the truth. Yet she wasn't upset. She moved to Percy and squeezed his hands. and then planted a kiss on Gilmore's cheek while telling him,
"I'll be in Iman for the rest of the day."
She then proceeded to leave the room as Gilmore went towards Percy. They shook hands and paused to look at each other. Percival smiled, closed his eyes slowly, and nodded. They didn't speak another word to each other, and neither did they need magic for their minds to understand each other. Gilmore followed Allura's example and exited the room, then the castle, but the mimicry of her road stopped when he had to turn towards the sentry.